As a product manager, you're responsible to build stakeholder alignment on a lot of decisions. This can often feel a daunting task or an uphill battle, especially as you strive to arrive at the intersection of customer needs, business objectives, product vision, timelines, costs, resources, etc. You're not alone. Many of us have been there. Today, we will hear from Jeremy Olsen, a product manager at Coda, on his secrets on how to build stakeholder alignment, how to make better, faster decisions while working as a group. This is the second part of a three-part series with Jeremy. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Pashmeen, the founder of PM Masterclass, where we help aspiring professionals transition into or accelerate their careers in product management. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Pashmeen.
Absolutely. So let's get started. The question that we have for you today is, as a product manager, how do you get stakeholders aligned, especially on tough decisions? And more broadly speaking, how do you make faster and better decisions?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm really passionate about this topic. I think it's one of the reasons is because it's so hard, right? And as product
That's right.
managers, right? As product managers, like as you mentioned, we have so much pressure on us to meet at this perfect intersection, right? Of all the different things, and one of them being like stakeholders' feelings and opinions, and as well as just all the other considerations. And so there's a few tools I wanted to share today. This video hopefully is very very practical, because each tool is like quite concrete, and I'm actually going to show it to you in a doc so you can kind of see how I use it. Um, and I think there's a lot to say about how you make a great proposal, and make a proposal that's covering the right things. This will be more around feedback. How do you get feedback on the proposal? And so the first tool I want to, and maybe actually I'll share all three. So the first one is around framing. How do you frame a problem in a proposal? Number two is going to be on feedback, and how do you kind of get unbiased feedback? And the three is kind of how do you insert some fun into your proposal, and actually turn the meetings into a bit of a game. So the first one, framing. I'll actually share my screen here, so you can kind of see, and I'll start with the tool itself so you can kind of see. This is Coda, the product that I work on, but you can do a lot of these kinds of things in other tools. So I'm going to type /options and insert a voting table here, and so this is just a template that we have, and it happens to be one of the tools that I use all the time. When you're kind of thinking about a tough decision, it's really important, number one, to find the right questions to answer and the right ordering. And there's another video on that we dig deep into that. But now it's okay. We have a question, and we have some different potential options. And having a table like this where you can kind of list out the different options, and I can add option 3 here. It has a number of benefits, and one of them is just kind of avoiding that like talking past each other problem, when you're like kind of considering a bunch of different things, but and one person's is saying one thing, another person's saying another thing, and they seem very different, but they might actually be more similar than they think. But really enumerating what are the actual options we're talking about. This is option 1. This is option 2. Are you talking about option 2? Or is that a variation in option 2? Is that option 2A? Do we need to add another option to the table? Right. When you do that, it just gives you a better way to have a more productive discussion. And it also kind of provides a framework for feeling heard. When you say, hey, that option isn't on the table, let me add that to the table. That is, even if you don't end up going with the decision with that option, adding it to the framework, adding it to the table gives a way for that person to feel heard, and ultimately they're much more likely, if they kind of understand, okay, here's the trade-off from between the one I was kind of advocating for and these other ones here, the real trade-offs between them, they're much more likely to enroll in the ultimate decision. Um, and then another one that is kind of interesting is you often find the controversial choices, especially if you do it at a table like this that has like voting up and voting down. You can kind of see the ones. Sometimes, like, there's one that you really have to talk about because it has a lot of upvotes and a lot of downvotes, right?
Right.
So just kind of pulling out. Okay, these are some choices. Here are the real choices. It's really between these two, and it's like, this one's really controversial. Let's make sure we talk about that. People have a lot of feeling about that. And then the final thing I'll say on framing is to kind of make sure that you've got a thought partner on it. I think one of the things I've just kind of discovered is that doing this solo can be very lonely. I would say it can be lonely. There's lots of
Right.
pressure, and so find that person. And it might be a designer, it might be an engineer, but someone who can just get that same level. And I like to say it's like really good thought partnerships almost feel like a mind meld. Like it's you share all the same context. When you have an idea, even if it's like completely early, you had it in the shower or whatever, you quickly type it into Slack and like share it with them. It's like a complete shared context, and it just like it keeps things moving. And it also kind of is like a gut check for your ideas. It also helps you not feel so crazy. Sometimes you're like, is this a crazy idea or not? Anyway, so just having that thought partner is really, really important, especially in this framing stage where you're really trying to figure out the core of a problem.
That's great.
So, that's framing. Should we move on to feedback?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So tool number 2 is feedback, and I'll move this table, and I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like in the doc, just to kind of start with something concrete. We call this tool Pulse. So I'm going to type /Pulse in Coda, and so here you're to the point. You frame the problem, and now you're ready to get some feedback on the problem, on your proposal. And this pulse check is something you probably will find in every single Coda proposal there is. And that's because a few things. Number one, it kills meetings. Like if you can share a proposal out with a pulse check, and it's like you could see here, there's, I could put in how many smiley faces am I feeling about this proposal, right? You can put in the reasons why. If it's all, average 4 or 5 stars, we might not have to have the meeting. It's fairly uncontroversial. We can keep going, right? But if there's a lot of mixed opinion, then there's that signal that actually you can go into in the meeting. Okay, here are the points I'm going to need to talk about. We're going to have to discuss. So that's one thing. Another thing is that it reduces groupthink, and that's actually, this little checkbox here is really important. This checkbox means basically we start it with it off, where I can only see my own sentiment, right? And so I'm going to put my sentiment here as 3. I'm going to put in my reflection. I think the idea is okay, right? If somebody else sees this feedback, or maybe I say it's bad, or maybe Shashir, our CEO, puts in some feedback that's like, I don't really like this idea. That's going to bias everybody else who goes in to put in feedback, right? And so this gives you a way to kind of reduce the groupthink. I can only see my feedback, and then when it's time to talk about it, we click this, we uncheck it, and now we get to see everybody, right? And so that is actually a really key part of this that makes it work. Then another thing is that it encourages reflection, right? Sometimes when you're in a meeting, you respond to something right away. You have some good thoughts about it, but it's better to like give some people a little space. And some people think a little bit differently. Some people need some space and look at the proposal, think about it, put some, reflect with some feedback. And it just gives a way to just have a culture of being very thoughtful about the feedback that you're giving because it's written down, right? And so those are a few things, the reasons we use we use this kind of pulse for getting feedback.
I love it, dude. I mean, this is really, really a gold mine, especially the fact that, with this capability, you're actually avoiding, right, the most natural tendency for individuals to agree with probably the loudest person or the highest paid individual in the room. So you're letting unbiased, uninfluenced feedback on your proposal. So I think that's definitely a gold mine that you hit on. Thank you for sharing that with us.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, I think the related to your point on the loudest person in the room, I think that also relates very much to this last tool. And maybe to preface it, I'll say that it's really helpful to think about when it's time for that meeting. It's helpful to think about your meetings like you think about your apps, and that you have to design them, right? Right? You don't just put out an app there, then just expect the best to happen, right? You've got to put some thought into how, what are your goals for that thing, and how are you going to design it to reach those goals. We should think about meetings the same way. If you want the best outcome, you need to design it, right? And so there's this book called Game Storming that we love at Coda, and it's basically the idea of like turning your meetings into games, and it's just like over 100 like different ways you can like gamify your meetings, and so this tool has to do with like how do we kind of gamify your meetings at the same time as we kind of democratize our meetings. This is also another tool that we use in almost every meeting at Coda. It's called Dory. Um, so I'm going to insert that there. It's very simple. It's a questions table. So you have your proposal. This is a place where people can put kind of discussion topics, questions they have, concerns, and as a way to be able to see what the biggest concerns are in the room, and people can upvote, downvote things, and those things go to the top, right? So the things that are most upvoted will go to the top, and that way, to the point of the loudest or the highest paid person in the room, the concerns that are addressed are the ones that the group thinks are really important. And that way, even if you can't cover all the questions, you've gotten at least the first, the ones that are voted, with 3 or more, right? The ones that felt really, really important. So you can kind of cover the most important topics. And also, it's a good way to kind of structure your conversation. So you're not just kind of going all over the place from this point to the other point. We have a question, we have a kind of a topic here. I can add a notes column and just take notes, and then you just go one by one down the list. And this is something we do in almost every Coda meeting.
That's great. Super, super insightful, Jeremy. So maybe if I could summarize, right, the 3 key steps. First, foremost is framing the right questions, right, to discuss and developing a shared understanding of the problem itself amongst all the stakeholders that are involved. Second, hearing how stakeholders feel by gathering uninfluenced, unbiased, and inclusive feedback. And then the third would be to have fun and gamifying the process a bit, so that again every voice is heard.
Absolutely, a great summary.
Yeah, and I guess these templates are in the description box below. So for all our viewers, that you can find more details about the templates that Jeremy shared, the tools that he shared, in the description box below. Again, if you enjoyed watching this video, found the content useful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channels. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us again. This is the second part of a 3-part video series from Jeremy, who's the product manager at Coda.
Thanks so much for
Thank you.
having me.